for some reason, the thought popped in my head, God in the Psych Ward. And I know that sounds really weird, so let me explain. I have alluded to and, kind of brushed over my story and my testimony many times because I'm not ashamed of it, and I think it's important to share what we go through so that other people can know that they're not alone. But I realize I've never told my story in detail, and that's not purposeful. It's just it's kind of difficult to really compact it in a 1 or 2 minute video, which is what Instagram allows. So I've decided to just kind of tell my story, and hopefully it resonates with you. I'd like to think that you were not in the exact same situation, but I kind of want this to be an example of how bad things can happen that don't seem to make sense, that we didn't ask for, but ultimately good comes out of it. And it's empowering for not only the person experiencing suffering, but the people who are in the direct sphere of influence. So yeah, I'm just gonna try as much as possible to keep this brief. And please feel free to comment, ask any questions. I am an open book. And I think that mental illness is still, unfortunately, rather taboo in society. People talk about like the more common forms, like anxiety and depression, and those are kind of like okay, but not if you sulk or you're too emotional or you're too dramatic, or you're overreacting. So even though those are more accepted, there's still a lot of stigma, there's still a lot of dismissiveness, there's still a lot of patronizing that goes on. So I'm choosing to share this story because I want fellow mental illness warriors to understand that I get it, that you're not alone, that it's not fair, but it happens, and that it can and it does get better. And also, a lot of people always ask me, like, why are you so outspoken about this? Like, you don't really need to tell people that. And I am finally proud of being a mental illness warrior, because it is something to be celebrated. Just like when people ring a bell when they get their last chemo treatment, just like people celebrate when they graduate from a AA program, when we overcome something difficult and are able to share that experience and that joy with others, and encourage them with our story, I think that's a beautiful thing. And you have no power over me. I'm the one telling my story. So I'm free. Like, it doesn't matter if you go and tell someone. I want you to go tell someone. And it's such a liberating thing to not be ashamed of who you are. Like, why is society like that? Why are we so mean to each other when we're all the same? But anyway, so my story. Sorry, I told you I'd keep this short. See, look at me. Okay. So, as far as my mental illness, I remember having a low self-esteem from, I think, it must have been like first grade. Let me put it the reverse way. The last time I remember like feeling that I liked myself was kindergarten. So that's why I say first grade, because I remember in kindergarten, I was taller than the other kids and I ran faster than the other kids. So I was like, ooh, I'm the girl, yes. And then it kind of all went downhill from there. I grew up around Caucasian people. Nothing wrong with that. They were awesome. I had a lot of friends, but I always felt less than, like physically. Like whenever I had a crush on a guy, we'd be really good friends, and then he'd tell me all about the girl that he actually likes, and I'd be like, great. And I just felt like I really didn't measure up. I felt like I wasn't pretty, and that kind of just continued. And then Around like 7th and 8th grade, I just got made fun of a lot. Like, it was horrible. I had so much anxiety. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. They were just so ruthless, and they were saying that I was too skinny. I wasn't a real girl because I wasn't curvy, that I was like just horrible at sports and I messed everything up. And it just got really bad. And I remember like literally begging and crying, like begging my PE teachers not to make me participate. And I remember having what's called somatization, which is when your mental illness causes a physical manifestation. For example, I would have like stomach pains all the time. Like, I would just get super sick. And that still happens now. But at the time, obviously, I didn't know what anxiety was, so I thought there was just something wrong with me. And I was always in the nurse's office. Hindsight is 2020. But anyway, so yeah, I remember having anxiety, and then the depression set in. I remember, I think it was in 7th grade. For some reason, when I got home, I was home alone. Just until like everybody else got home. Like, it wasn't like they just left me home alone. But my bus got home a little sooner, I guess. And I remember coming home and just crying and crying. And I remember looking at the knife drawer and thinking about harming myself in 7th grade. Because kids can be jerks. Kids can be very ruthless. And I remember I just kind of got into this state where I just wouldn't talk, like, at all. Like, if a teacher asked me a question, I would just look at them, and then I'd be like, okay, like, let me answer, because I don't want to be disrespectful. But if my friends talked to me, I would just look at them. Friends, by the way. Classmates, I should say. And I just kind of got into this headspace where it just wasn't worth it, like, to try and paste on a smile and everything. See, that's the thing. Mental illness takes many forms. And one thing that makes me rather angry is when people try to put everyone who has mental illness in a box. First of all, everyone has some form of mental illness, because unless you're perfect, you've suffered from something and you have some symptom of something. So let's just get that out of the way. But sometimes people are really mentally ill when they're that super happy, bubbly person, because they're overcompensating, because it gets exhausting for people to keep asking you what is wrong when you can't really pinpoint which thing is currently causing your negative mood. Because there can be multiple things going on in your head at once, or nothing, and it just comes because your neurotransmitter levels are out of balance. So sometimes it is the more typical, stereotypical mode of manifestation where people, like, are outwardly sad, like they're not as talkative, they're more isolated and reserved. But more often than not, it's the opposite, because we have learned very well how to adapt in order to be respected, because a lot of people kind of become very uncomfortable when someone is emotional. So I think, well, I'll get back to that near the end. So anyway, that's when it really started getting bad, I guess. I remember my teacher writing to my family that they thought I was depressed, to which I was met with, "What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like that? What is it?" In a very abrasive manner, which now as an adult I can understand came from a good place, but it was not particularly helpful at the time, so I just kind of cowered inside myself and said I was fine. I wasn't. So anyway, then go to high school, things kind of got better, like I had friends and stuff, and that was cool. But kind of the same situation, like I was never like really sought after. I had glasses and braces, so that didn't help. The struggle was real. But yeah, I just remember feeling like I wasn't enough. Like my friends were just like putting up with me. They didn't actually like me. And that I was just like broken somehow. And I remember I guess it had become apparent. I thought I was doing a pretty great job hiding it. But one of my close friends, to this day I call her bestie, and I remember she sat me down one time, and she just kind of started pouring into me, and she asked me, what would you do if your brother found out that you were thinking about taking your own life? And I just remember falling apart, like bawling. And what's crazy is that, not literally crazy, I hate that word, but what's fascinating is the fact that I had not even realized how suicidal I had become. Like I wasn't like actively thinking, oh, I'm suicidal. I don't really know how to explain it. Like it was more of like a passive, like, oh, you know, like I'm gonna go away. Like I just won't have to worry anymore, and I won't be sad anymore. It wasn't like, oh, I'm about to harm myself, if that makes sense. It was just more like this desire to go away and to be free, to be liberated from this mental prison that I was in, from feeling so much worry and so much dread and so much loneliness in spite of being around people. Because that's another thing. As far as being mentally ill, it does not matter what your actual circumstances are, and most of the time they don't help. But what's really not helpful is when people are like, oh, you have a good life. Oh, you come from a good family. Oh, you have money. Oh, they're no. Like what? Like, do you say that to someone who has diabetes or anemia? Do you say, oh, well, you come from a good family? Like, how is that productive? Like, that just throws me. But anyway, I guess part of my testimony is also like tips on how to navigate a relationship with someone who is diagnosed with mental illness, or just who presents with the symptoms, because there's a lot of taboo and stigma associated with therapy. So a lot of people don't go. Anyway, back to the story. So I'm in high school and that happens, and I'm like, okay, like I need to get my life together. So then I was pretty okay. Had my first like serious relationship my senior year of high school. He cheated on me, which wasn't helpful. And then I already shared the story about how my parents' marriage was kind of like falling apart during this whole time. And I'm not going to go into that, but that definitely did affect me. It affected how I viewed love. It affected how I viewed myself, because in the aftermath of that, there was a lot of, just a quick tidbit, there was a lot of kind of feeling like I had to choose sides, and like both sides were right and both sides were wrong simultaneously. And constantly feeling dismissed and patronized and judged by both sides, and just feeling very isolated, very confused, very disconcerted. It was a tough time, and I'm still dealing with some of the aftermath of that, and I think that it is important, just in case you didn't see my most recent Wellness Wednesday, it is important to go back over your life and take inventory of the experiences that you've had, so that you can recognize patterns and hopefully end them before they cause too much detriment. So in the aftermath of my whole family thing, that's also around the time when I had that conversation with my friend about the suicide, by the way. So situations can perpetuate mental illness, but they do not necessarily cause it. So please don't make people feel like they either have grounds or don't have grounds for an illness that they have. But yeah, so all that happened, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to college and everything's gonna be great. And it was. I enjoyed college. I really, really did. College was pretty great. I feel like that was a time when I finally kind of like came into myself. I got to be out on my own. And that was cool. Made a lot of friends and stuff. I was in and out of relationships. And that was because I have a very low self-esteem. Like I said, like stemming from school, then I got made fun of, then my family falls apart, and then my parents are holding me to these high standards that I can't meet. And what's crazy is like the whole time I had like straight A's. Like I'm not even tooting my own horn, but like that is how the perfectionism kind of came to be, because I was like, ooh, one area of my life that I can control. At least Imani's smart. She's not pretty, she's not funny, she's not that great, but she's smart. And that was hard. That was hard. But anyway, so we're in college now, and I didn't realize that I was kind of looking for people who reminded me of people in my past that I felt like I was not good enough for. And there's a mental label for it, but basically it's kind of like seeking out a relationship in order to resolve what feels like an open loop or unresolved situation. So I was looking for people who were kind of judgmental, overly critical, emotionally unavailable, in order to get them to then love me, to prove to myself that I was worthy of love and that I was, quote unquote, good enough for somebody. So it was really, really painful and unhealthy and not helpful. But you live and you learn, sometimes the hard way. So there was that, and it was kind of up and down. But for the most part, made sure I stayed on the straight and narrow as far as grades. That was really important to me. I signed myself up for therapy as soon as I got to college, and I haven't stopped therapy since. So I remember the first time that it like really happened, I should say. I had all A's, but there was one class that I think I had an A minus. And like we had this really hard project that I was working on, and it was just really difficult, and I was like, oh my gosh, like if I don't do well on this project, then I might get a B, and blah blah blah. And I remember I was sitting with a friend of mine, and I went to the bathroom and I just bawled, like I just cried. And then I came back, like I cleaned myself up, and I came back and I was like, I gotta go. And my best friend at the time, he just kind of looked at me, and he was like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm sorry, like I'm so sorry. And I just like ran out of that building, and I was like charging it back to my dorm, and some people that I knew tried to like stop me, and I really didn't want to be stopped because I knew that they might change my mind, and I just wanted to be done. And I hear this little pitter patter behind me. It is my friend in his little slippers trying to catch up to me. And he's like, what's going on? And I was like, I don't want to anymore. And he's like, you don't want to what? And I was just a wreck. Like I'm bawling at this point. And I was like, live. And he was like, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna talk. And I just start pouring out all this stuff about, it wasn't about the grades so much. It was about having control over something, because for so long I had felt like everything in my life was so chaotic. My relationships, my family, my friendships, my appearance, like everything was just so out of my control. And grades were one thing that were in my control. So if I can do this and I'm gonna be okay, then I'm gonna be good at life. If I can be successful in spite of everything that's going on, then I'm gonna be okay, which is fine. But then the reverse was also true. If I'm not successful in spite of everything that's going on, then how can I expect to make it in life? So don't judge your friends who are really stressed out over grades and think, oh, you're just trying to make us feel bad, you're trying to make us look bad, you have good grades. No, you have no idea why that person is so stressed out about their grades. Out of the like 6 times that I went to a mental hospital, 4 of those times were because of the stress of college and grad school. And while I was in there, the nurses told me that they got college students all the time, like it was a regular occurrence. You would be surprised. So, I remember it's like the middle of the night and we go to this ER, right? And they're asking me all these questions, people I don't know what's going on. But at least I have my best friend with me, right? So they're like, okay, we're gonna admit you. And I'm like, okay. And then my friend like gets up to walk with me and they're like, oh no, he can't come with you. And like, I just remember like this panic set in, because I had all the taboos too. Like all I knew about psych wards were what I saw on TV and what I heard. It's just like, oh, like they just drug you up until you're not yourself, and then nobody comes to like look for you, and society forgets about you, and they treat you horribly in there because nobody comes. And like literally that, like that's all I knew. Like that's what I thought I was looking towards. And my friend was the only like saving grace. I was just like, okay, at least he'll be looking out for me and that kind of stuff. And when they took that away, I just remember being so terrified. So I get to this place and all of a sudden they start taking everything that I own. Like, oh, you can't have your shoelaces because you could do this with them. You can't have any of your hair products because you could drink them. And I'm like, this is creative. I wouldn't even do all this stuff. Like, can we not? I was like, you guys are giving me ways. Like, I didn't even think of half of the things that you're telling me. But they take everything that makes me who I am. Like, they take all of my things and make me wear this huge hospital gown that's like 3 sizes too big. And they put me in a room with a lady that I've obviously never met, who is having entire conversations with herself all night long. And I just remember spending the entire night, not the entire night, I'm sure I fell asleep at some point, but spending a formidable amount of time just rocking back and forth and saying, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy. I was terrified. And I felt so alone and so forgotten and just terrified. I didn't know these other people. I don't know if they were safe. I don't know what was going to happen. I just didn't know. I didn't know how long I was going to be there. They locked everything. They said we could only have people come for 1 hour a day. And my whole life just changed in a matter of hours. Mind you, all this because I didn't want to get a B. So I ended up staying there for 3 days, and I ended up really relishing the opportunity for a break. And I realized that a lot of the times when people like me feel like we want to end our existence on this earth, it is not, at least from a lot of the experiences that I and my other friends who are mental health warriors have experienced is that it is more about being free. Like this idea of not being so anxious, not being so sad, not being so overwhelmed by life and by pain and by worry and by loneliness and by dread. Like just being liberated just for a second. Like not having to rethink the way that I think, not having to overanalyze everything I say and do. Oh, was that stupid? Are these people gonna think less of me? Am I professional enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? Am I funny enough? Am I being what this person expects me to be right now? And then what if another person comes, and do I need to be who they want me to be or who they want me to be? Because I just want to be loved for who I am. Because in my mind, I'm not. So I'm in this hospital and they're making me take these medications, and I'm with these people that I don't know. And I can't even like contact the outside because they take your phone. So it was just a whole experience. But I ended up loving it because I ate it up. Like all the worksheets they gave me, I was like, bet. All the music activities, I was like, this is great. Like, because I'm a doer, I'm a perfectionist. So I'm like, bet, I'm just gonna do all these things and then I'm gonna cure myself and it's gonna be great. So life is not a checklist, unfortunately. So I kind of had high hopes that were kind of not super realistic, but I still remember like getting out on the third day and feeling like this culture shock, because in a psych ward, your days are very, very regimented. It's like, okay, you have this group and then this music group and then this art group, and then you have to eat. And you have to eat when you eat because otherwise you will starve. There's not really a whole snack situation. Like they tell you when to eat, they tell you when to sleep, they tell you when to get up, they tell you when to do everything. And in a weird way, I actually liked that. I liked that what was expected of me was very clear and very doable. So ultimately, the psych ward was not a negative experience all in all, because I felt like I learned a lot. I was able to commune with other people who got it. Like I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. And that was nice. So then I was like, okay, great. Learn my lesson. And then from what I remember, the other time that really like sticks out in my mind was grad school now. I don't remember if that other time was grad school or just regular college. Well, it was one of the two. So anyway, this other time, I just remember like walking. I was walking on campus and I was just thinking, and I was like, do my friends really like me? Like if I wasn't here, like would they really care or would they be relieved? And just thinking about like, like this program, it's so stressful. There's always something, and it's not that school came difficult to me, but it was more just the idea that everything had to be a certain caliber. Like just passing was never an option. Like I mentioned before, I still do have very high expectations for myself. That's something I work on a lot in therapy. I have absolutely no grace or compassion for myself. It's either I do incredibly well or I fail. Like there's no in between. So that is something that I'm working on. And I just remember feeling like so isolated. And I remember thinking about drinking my laundry detergent, jumping from this high like bridge that we had on campus. There's like all these different ways that I could go away. And it's weird. Like it's not like there's this moment where you're just like, okay, now I'm suicidal. It's kind of like, okay, like I've been sad for a long time. I've been worried for a long time. I just want relief from this burden of emotion that I feel like I'm constantly carrying. And it's just kind of a desire to feel accepted, feel supported, feel better. So I don't even remember how I got there that time, like how I got to the psych ward. But same situation. I quickly learned what to say, because if you say that, like, if you go willingly, then they're more likely to let you leave in a shorter period of time, because it shows that you're able to make wise decisions. So yeah, I guess I went a couple more times, and then I remember they sent me home. So my program was a 5-year accelerated program, so 5 years including the regular 4 of college, and I finished in 6. And that's not because my grades weren't good enough, but I guess I had been like suicidal one too many times, so the psych department told me that I needed to go home and get more intensive care. So I was like, okay. Well, no, I wasn't like, okay. I was incredibly upset because it was like near the end of the semester and I had worked so hard and I was gonna have to start all over. But I mean, sometimes life takes you where you don't want to go. And I ended up going home, and basically I went into a partial hospitalization program, which means that you pretty much go, it's similar to being like in the psych ward, except you get to live at home. So you go there from like 8 to 4, like you spend the whole day there doing groups and stuff and therapy, and then you get to go home to sleep, which is cool. So I was doing that, and then I remember my brother was having a minor surgery, and one of my parents was very, very worried about it, and this caused said parent to not be super kind, kind of really angry and irritable for a while, and I was telling my therapist what was going on, and I remember I had been on the phone with a friend, and this parent just kind of got really upset and started yelling at me and calling me a traitor and saying that blood is thicker than water, and that I needed to be spending more time with my family, because they were the only ones who were ever gonna really care about me. So I remember just being so fed up. I was obviously already fragile. So I ran down to the kitchen and I grabbed a knife, the first one that I found, and then I locked myself in the bathroom. And my brother, I guess he had heard me, because he comes and he starts knocking, asking if I'm okay. I mean, it was God. I'm not even gonna lie. I know that specifically this moment was God, because I'm here trying. Like, I was like, oh, I need to hurry. So I'm here trying. And I had like dabbled a little bit in self-harm, but not really, because I really have like a low tolerance for pain. Like, I just can't. I can't. I don't like paper cuts. I can't with the hand sanitizer. It's the worst. I just can't. I don't even like getting manicures because the lady nicks me with the thing. It's the worst. But anyway, so I was like really trying this time. And I remember I was just like, I can't though. Like, I can't do that to my brother. I just can't. Like, I can't have him be the person who finds me. Like, I love him way too much for that. Like, no. And like I said, it was God, because the knife was, I literally happened to grab the dullest knife on the face of this entire planet. So that didn't work. And then he came in and we were just bawling. And I felt so bad, because that is one thing. If you are a fellow mental illness warrior, I know, obviously, I know what it feels like to feel like everything is too much, to feel like no one understands you, to feel like you are broken, like you are an inherent mistake. Like, God cares about everyone, and I've seen the anguish that it causes the people who actually do care about you. Do not allow, as much as possible, and through the help of therapy and medication, try not to allow your mind to convince you of the lie that nobody cares. Because to see the pain, like the pain that it causes the people who you thought were just putting up with you, who you thought would be fine without you, would, like make it somehow. The pain of just the thought of losing you, like, it is astronomical. Like, that hurt more than anything else, to actually see for myself how much this would hurt other people. And all I'm concerned about is ending my own hurt, which is fair. We're not meant to live in this heightened emotional fight or flight state on a regular basis. That's why our bodies crave relief and peace. But we have to find healthy coping strategies to manage it, because you'd be surprised the amount of people actually give a crap about you. People truly can love you way more than you'll ever love yourself. And I am a testament to that fact. And I care. That's why I'm making this. So you can always reach out to me. Please do. And know that I'm praying for you. And that I'm so sorry that you're going through this. Because I wouldn't wish this on anyone, including myself. But that's neither here nor there. So, anyway, and then, what was the other time? Oh, so suicide isn't always from depression or anxiety. Sometimes it is from anger. So, yay, I'm glad I get to talk about this other aspect of it, because this is important. Just as a human being, try not to be a trash human being. Because, like, there have been so many times when I was, like, on the edge. And someone was just super, like, nasty for no reason. Like, if you're having a bad day, I am so sorry. Like, nobody likes having bad days. But that does not give you permission to be careless with another human being who had nothing to do with you having a bad day. I remember being in my program, and one of my instructors, I guess, was not very pleased with an assignment that I had handed in. And I had worked hard on it, but I did not understand how to do it correctly. It was our first time doing that type of assignment. And she just let me have it. She was just telling me, this is not the type of work that you usually put in. This is below expectation. Like, it was just mean. And I was incredibly hurt by it. And she had no idea that I had been on the edge for weeks. And that was the one thing that was enough to put me over. Which is not her fault, don't get me wrong. Suicide is not any external person's fault. But other people's words and actions, whether we like it or not, they can influence someone's emotions. Because a lot of times, and it shouldn't be like this, but I'm just being honest, when you're at that level, you're looking for signs, either to do it or not to do it. I mean, we hear all those stories all the time, right? Oh, like, I paid for someone to meal and they wrote on the ballot that, like, they weren't gonna commit suicide because I showed them kindness and things like that. And I love, love, love those stories, because it shows people the power of a moment of kindness or carelessness. And I'm purposely calling it carelessness because nobody is perfect. And I'm not saying that We need to be nice to, like, overtly nice and giving to everyone all the time. What I'm saying is, just try to be mindful, because that email made me feel like, you know what? I'm going to show this person. I'm going to show them that you can't treat people like crap. And I'm going to make this person regret for the rest of their life that they were so mean to me today. And hopefully that's enough to make them just a little bit more compassionate next time. So I was willing to end my life out of a solitary moment of anger in order to teach someone a lesson. Now that I'm in a better place, I can look back and see how distorted my thinking was. But I mean, how would you feel if someone told you that the way you've been thinking your whole life is inherently wrong, and that most people don't think the way you do? How easy do you think it is to automatically just change your way of thinking, change your neural pathways? It's not really that simple. Yes, the awareness is awesome. You know, like, you can't fix a problem you don't realize exists. However, there's no real quick fix. But anyway, so that caused me to take a bunch of my sleeping pills, and I called. I'm the one who called. That's the thing. I believe this. I didn't want to die. I've gone to the hospital 6 times for suicide, and I didn't want to die. If you get nothing else, I hope you understand that. It's not about death. It's not about wanting to hurt anyone. It's about, well, in this instance, I was a little angry. But for the most part, it's about wanting relief from overbearing, overwhelming, consistent emotional duress, and not believing that relief can be found via other and much healthier avenues. But I can attest to the fact that it can, and it does get better. So let's get to that part of the story. So I went a few more times. Those were the main times that I remember. And then I went back again last October for my longest stay. I think I was in there like 5 days. And that is another part of my story as well. And I'm going to mention it because it is important. There will be times when you feel better. Months, possibly even a year or two, where you feel better and you're like, ooh, yeah, I'm doing my aromatherapy. I got a weighted blanket. I'm in therapy regularly. I'm do the journal thing over here. I have a support system over here. Ooh. And then it hits. It happens. It comes back. It becomes unmanageable again. Despite you doing all the right things, despite you taking your medication, all that kind of stuff, there will be highs and lows. And I remember being so disheartened by that fact, because I'm like, okay, but like, especially in my perfectionist mindset, I'm like, okay, but I did the thing. Like, I checked the checklist, like, and I remember it like threw me, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I am inherently broken. I'm never gonna get better because I did all the things and it didn't work, and I'm just messed up forever. And that's not true. Just because it gets bad again doesn't mean that all that time that you were able to successfully use your coping strategies is automatically eradicated. It doesn't mean that all of that progress is gone or lost or insignificant, because it is so significant, and it will help you to get through this valley and to get through it quicker than maybe you were able to do in the past. But please understand that there may be times after you recover that you still go through some deep, prolonged periods. And that's okay. Sometimes it means beefing up your therapy sessions twice a week instead of just once a week or once every other week. Talking to your psychiatrist about medication. Doing your coping strategies more often. Trying to find new coping strategies. And just because some things are coping strategies doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily work for you. I know people who journaling just doesn't work for. And I used to love journaling. And even I don't really do it anymore. Because I use an app that I love where I kind of journal in the app. But the traditional sense of journaling, I don't do as much as I used to. So what worked for you in the past may not work for you now. And that's okay. All that matters is that you're trying. So where am I now? What is the point of all this? Now, amidst all of this suffering and pain and chaos, I'm not gonna lie, I have been anxious. I literally haven't had a proper night's sleep since this whole thing started. I take medication to help me sleep, and even then, I have insomnia. Most nights I don't fall asleep until like 3 something in the morning, when typically I'm in bed by like 8, 9, like at the latest. Like, I love sleep. I love me some sleep. But anxiety is what it is. So, in spite of that, I have been learning so much about myself and kind of learning to appreciate little things about myself. I'm not gonna say, oh, I just love myself wholeheartedly now. But I'm learning, hey, like I'm a pretty clean person. You know, like I can't let my apartment get like past a certain amount of like stuff. It just like drives me insane. So I was like, that's cool. And you know, like I consider myself intelligent. And I do worry too much if other people think so. I'm like, oh, did I use big enough words? Or, oh, if I speak Ebonics, will they think that's all I know how to say and not standard American English? Or will they understand that I'm simply code switching because the setting is appropriate? These are the things that I think about. I still overthink where, you know, like if I'm texting someone and they put a period instead of an exclamation point, and they usually put exclamation points, and I'm like, ooh, like maybe I'm frustrating them. No. So I'm not perfect, obviously. As far as like my journey, but I am learning to like myself. I'm cooking more. I'm cooking new things, so that's been enjoyable. And I have recently, for whatever reason, joined TikTok, and I have been doing a lot of dance challenges. You guys remember like when we were young and we felt like old people were taking over Facebook? And I feel like I've become that old person on TikTok. And I'm not ashamed of it. It is what it is. But anyway, but I did want to say that even though I obviously still have my struggles, I still have perfectionism, I still have overthinking, I still have low self-esteem, I am in the process of becoming a better version of myself. I use glitter lamps, I use aromatherapy, not as often. I use a weighted blanket. I use an awesome free app called Youper, Youper. It's free because they're using it as research. And it monitors your mood every day. It monitors your mental health through assessment every couple weeks. Love it because it's practical. And other things aren't necessarily inherent coping strategies, like reading for fun. I've had a lot of time to do that, and it's brought me so much joy. And trying to eat healthier. I'm in the process of transitioning to vegetarianism, so pray for me. But all this to say that I'm not pretending to have achieved it or really overcome every aspect of mental illness. I don't pretend to, And that's not why I made this video. I made this video to encourage people that in your lowest moment, somebody cares. And you can feel empowered to know that someone who's been in similar shoes as yours was able to get through dark moments and learn how to live a manageable and full life while still having mental illness and still functioning and still being, for the most part, self-sufficient. But I do have an awesome support system. And looking back, I always did, but I didn't tap into it because I didn't believe I was worthy of it. Believe that people love you more than you love yourself. Believe that just because it doesn't work with one therapist doesn't mean it won't work with another. Believe that medication can help. It took me, I think, 7 or 8. And even then, it just makes it manageable. It doesn't fix everything. Try to have realistic expectations for yourself and your growth. It took years to build these negative thought patterns, and it may take years to undo them and then create new ones. And that's okay. Literally, all we have right now is time, which is, I guess it can be a blessing in disguise. But I wanted to mention that every time that I was going to go through with it, something happened. Someone came, and there were times when I prayed and I was like, God, like, send someone, and nobody came. And I believe that in those moments, God wanted me to seek him instead of always looking for another human being, because human beings, even though they mean well, they're not available 24/7, and no one is meant to kind of bear that burden all the time. Just like it's a lot for us personally, it's a lot for the people in our support system. But all the times when I was seriously going to do it, I had the help that I needed just to get through the next minute, I would say. And I can look back over my journey, my life, and see that there's always been a person. Always, whether it was just a friend, a classmate, sometimes even a stranger, someone who cared, and someone who showed me kindness. I remember while I was in college, there was this guy that I didn't even know. Like, I don't remember, like, I guess someone introduced us, and we seemed to have class at the same time, because I had to pass him in the hallway and say hi. And that was it. That was like the extent of our acquaintanceship. And like years later, he told me that he had been suicidal. And me smiling at him and showing him that kindness, just being intentional to say hi, was what made the difference. Like, you have no idea how much influence your positivity or negativity has on a person. So I do want people to keep that in mind. Not that it is your sole responsibility. Everyone is responsible for their own decisions and actions. But it is important to be kind. It's paramount, it's critical, it's absolutely necessary to be kind. Please. God is good. I have had a lot of time to take inventory of my life, and I realize that I have a lot to be grateful for, which does not negate mental illness, but it helps a lot. And what I meant by that is that sometimes people use that in a condescending manner, where they're like, oh, you have a lot to be grateful for, so you shouldn't be sad. That's not really fair. If we could control this, if it was a choice, why would anyone choose this feeling, this life? Like, no. Like, everyone wants to be happy, obviously. But gratitude helps. There's a lot of evidence behind gratitude as a strong benefit to those who struggle with mental illness. So gratitude helps, journaling helps, and just talking it out. A lot of times just talking to people and actually having to say the words out loud makes me hear myself, and kind of helps me think, okay, how is this person interpreting what I'm saying? Like, would they think that it sounds disordered or typical? And without them even really having to give a lot of input, it causes me to kind of get out of my typical way of thinking and actually see, okay, like, am I thinking in a rational manner, or am I thinking from an emotionally wounded place? So talking things out is always helpful. I know therapy is not always doable because it's not cheap. I have used BetterHelp, which is an option where you can chat, you can video message, and it's more reasonably priced than like more traditional forms of therapy. So BetterHelp is an awesome resource. And a way to blanket, if you can invest in one, they're awesome. I got mine off Amazon for like 60 something. And I've had it for a couple of years now, and I love that. But whatever works for you. I mean, some people like nature, not really my story. but nature can be very cathartic. And I always like kind of resented people who tried to like manipulate me into exercising. But now that I've been doing it because I want to, I realize that it really does have a lot of benefits. Like, it makes you feel so much more confident. It makes you feel like you're making good choices, like you're doing something positive. So exercise is definitely something to consider. And make sure you do it in a way that works for you. Like, I'm not a gym person. I'm not, let me just do 100 jumping jacks just because. No. That's why I'm so glad that I found TikTok as of late, because dancing is fun for me, and it's something that's new. There's always a new challenge, something different. And that is exciting to me. So try to incorporate exercise. And God has been awesome. I think that a relationship with God is where we find true peace. The Bible says that God is a God of all comfort, and that he gives us peace that passes all understanding. So I would encourage you to explore that. And it's okay if your relationship with God looks different from the box that other people have told you he is in. I have a friend who's awesome with art, and she just like draws stuff. And I think that God can be expressed through art. I love to sing, so that's usually what I do. I have a hymn book, and I just like whip it out and start singing stuff, and it calms me down. So I think that it's okay if your relationship with God is a little unorthodox and just look like everybody else's, because it's not meant to. He made us unique for a reason, to celebrate who we are. So that is my story, with also some tidbits on how to be nice to people that you know struggle with mental illness, and also some coping strategies that I hope are helpful if you are a fellow warrior just like me. Yeah, I for the first time in a long time, I finally feel like I'm starting to like just being who I am. And I hope you can too.